Alrighty, welcome to another episode of Tyler's Yarns. This is an exciting episode. We're filming in Dan's house.
Hello.
Yeah, do you want to talk to us a bit about who you are, what you do?
Yeah, for sure. I can maybe, my name's Dan. I'm originally from New Zealand. I'm a tattooist by trade, but paint a lot too. Been in Melbourne for like the past 10 years or so, and just like the last couple of years started getting back into painting, which has been fun.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, it's been exciting.
Do you want to talk to us about your up-and-coming show?
For sure. So I've got a show is in Brunswick at a place called Honeybones, and that's going to be on the 26th. The opening's at 6 p.m. on the 26th, goes till 9, and then it should be there, like all my work will be there for 5 days after that.
How many sort of pieces are going to be at the show?
So you're looking like maybe 30 plus. Maybe 32 in total. I'm still like trying to finish one up at the moment to make it 33, but yeah, we got like a collaboration of just like I got some paintings, I've got some 3D prints, I've got like some painted mannequins, and also some like digital printing and things like that, which is cool. I'm excited to show everyone.
Yeah, that's cool. Before we get into it, let's just go through sort of like a brief history on like how you got into art, like when you first started, maybe.
Yeah, definitely.
Tell us your story.
So
I'd love to know.
My first like significant kind of memory of drawing was maybe like it would have been like 5.
Yeah.
And at the time, like my parents' mates had like a Sega Genesis, and on the Sega Genesis, if you didn't have the cartridge in, there was like Sonic the Hedgehog. So it's like the kind of free game that you would get. And I remember from there, I just got like obsessed with Sonic the Hedgehog and wanted to. I guess the way that I expressed that was drawing him. Yeah. So my first memory of like seriously drawing something like on a daily to weekly basis was Sonic the Hedgehog. And that carried pretty much all the way through to like even now I'll draw him every now and then. So started drawing about then. Do
you reckon you got sort of like that sort of Disney sort of animation style stuff from all the way back then?
I reckon for sure there's definitely some influence there of like Aladdin for sure, Looney Tunes, everything that I kind of watch I definitely do tend to even put into my paintings now for sure. They just don't get old to me. I love it. Yeah,
that's such a vibe.
Yeah.
So you're just growing up, you're into Sonic.
Yeah, so I'm kind of the way, mostly just drawing Sonic all the time.
Yeah, 20 Sonics a day.
For sure. So I mean, pretty much just going through, I was never really too good at like maths or English or anything like that, and art always seemed to be the thing that I was just like good at. So I kind of stuck with it and started drawing more than Sonic, and always got like, it was kind of like the one compliment that I would get from someone was like, hey man, like sick drawing sort of thing. So it was kind of like a cool affirmation for me to want to like continue to do it.
Yeah.
And then I was like through high school, I think it was like my second to last year, I wanted to drop out, and my art teacher, Evan Jones, is like really good guy, like more of a mentor than an art teacher, kind of, I guess, just talked to me about the benefits of staying and how we could like set up a cool like kind of doing art throughout the last 2 years of my study. So literally like my day at high school would be like art painting, art design, art photography, art history, and then like PE.
Yeah. So do you think you were sort of a natural at art back then? Like, do you know how like, say for me, if I started drawing stuff, I'd be absolutely shit. Yeah. Do you reckon you just sort of were a natural?
Yeah, I think maybe it's an interesting one that I've like thought about, like is someone like naturally at something, or is it like they're just interested, or if they're just interested in something, can they put more time into it? But I think like I've got quite a still hand, and that's kind of what helps me with tattooing and things like that. So there's definitely a couple like advantages that I've got that would help me with drawing. I'm like super visual person. Also, like sometimes I'll get stuck on my words and things like that. So like how the best way for me to describe myself is always being through like art, painting, things like that.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
So you got through Sonic, you're in high school now.
High school, ended up like staying my course and ended up finishing high school, which is cool. Got a scholarship, and then ended up coming over to Melbourne when I was 18 to study fine arts at RMIT.
Oh yeah. How was studying? Do you want to get into that? Like what sort of course you did?
For sure, yeah. So I studied at RMIT. It's called a Bachelor of Fine Arts, and it goes for like 3 years.
Yeah.
And you just kind of it's like any sort of uni course, you get to select what you want to do, but you have to pick like a specific major, and I picked painting.
Yeah. How did you find it? Was it difficult, easy?
It definitely had its challenging times. Like when it comes to like the history and things like that, I mean, especially at the age I was, it wasn't really anything that I was too interested. I just wasn't interested in wanting to learn too much of the history. I just wanted to like physically paint.
Or you're more sort of practical than... Practical
for sure. Yeah. Like more interested in like expressing than learning for sure. But no, I really enjoyed uni. I think it's really good, and for anyone that wants to like to do something like an art course for uni would be like great, because it's nothing too serious that's going to like stick you in for the rest of your life. It's more like for me, it was a great kind of like, I don't want to use the word stalling period, because I learned so much from it and I benefited heaps from it. But at the same time, it wasn't like setting me into a career that I had to do when I finished it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So you moved over from New Zealand to Melbourne in this time?
Yeah. So I was 18 and then practically like did my 3 years at RMIT, finished that up, and like the last couple years of studying, I started getting tattoos, and that's kind of where that led into.
Who was your, like, what was your sort of inspiration behind tattoos? Like, why did you get them in the first place?
Well, I think why most people get them is because they, cool. Because they're cool, or they like, you think they make you look cool. So, I mean, I've got a couple meaningful ones, but for the majority, like all of it's just random.
Yeah, just completely random. I'm probably going to be the same when I get all my arms covered and stuff like that.
Definitely.
I think that's the way to go. So you finished RMIT. You had a bunch of tattoos.
Did like a bit of an OE with like my best mates over in Europe. Yeah. Wasn't too sure what I was going to do. There was
a gap year if you're from Australia.
Bit of a gap year, yeah. We went to Europe and Southeast Asia for a bit. Yeah. And at that point I was like a little bit burnt out from the painting.
Yeah.
The conceptual side is like having to apply a narrative to my art is something that I've always kind of struggled with early on. And I think I was only 18 or 20 at the time, so it was like natural for me to still want to push against like not authority, but just like adults. Like, why should I have to make a story behind my art? And it didn't feel comfortable to me, and I didn't take it seriously. So at that point in time, I decided to kind of drop it for a bit and get into tattooing.
Yeah,
it was kind of something that you could like draw and express without having to have a specific meaning. And if there was, it would be the customer having the meaning, not me.
Yeah. So how did you sort of talk us through that? How did you get an apprenticeship, and what made you think, oh, I'm going to start tattooing?
For sure. So mostly collecting them, getting out of art school and not really knowing where I was going to kind of end up or like just do with myself, and tattooing, like it just seemed like the good idea at the time, and it was something
sort of like a no-brainer, you reckon?
A bit of a no-brainer, and like looking back on it, I don't really want to, it's when you do tattooing, you should be super passionate about it, and I am, but my beginning it wasn't super passionate to begin with. It was something I really wanted to do, but if I'm being completely honest, there's like a cool aspect there that kind of draws you to it. It's just kind of how it is.
And you probably like attract a lot of cool people as well.
That's what I thought for sure. Yeah. It's like as I've gotten a little bit older and I've been tattooing 5 years, and I love it. And it's not what I thought it was, but I'm stoked of what it is. Yeah.
So how's the last sort of 5 years been for your tattooing?
Yeah.
Have you like really enjoyed it? As your art and your tattooing go hand in hand, or?
Yeah, to begin with, the art and the tattooing wasn't. I almost like specifically wanted to separate them.
Why is that?
I think it was almost like, again, I was so like over it with the painting thing at that point in time. I just wanted to do something completely different. And it's like, it's not that different. The way that you apply art versus tattooing is like quite different.
Yeah.
So in that aspect, I could separate it from art.
Yeah.
But like, as I've kind of spent longer in the industry, I've started to realize there's definitely like, it's more interesting. It's more interesting if you can like pull kind of one aspect from painting and bring it into tattooing and vice versa. It kind of makes it more unique.
When you first sort of started tattooing, was it super difficult? Like, because it's a bit scary. Like, you're writing on people's skin. There's no room for error.
Yeah, I mean, there's always room for error when Hards is taking a tattoo. Yeah, for sure. He's so chill. And for people that know,
most of our friends as well.
Yeah, like I was so fortunate to have like a bunch of mates that was like so chill for me to like fuck it up on them.
Yeah, a bit of free skin, eh?
For sure, yeah. But it's an interesting process. It's one I always forget. I only see it back when like we've got an apprentice in the store and you kind of see them going through the struggles that you did, and unless you see that on a regular basis, you kind of forget that it was actually quite difficult to kind of get to a point where you can tattoo during the day and not be stressed out. It's like you still have moments where it's a lot, but there were some moments back in the day where I was like cold sweat, wanted to quit. Like nothing worse than having to sit there and finish something you didn't want to fit and like didn't know if the customer was going to like it or not. It can be a bit stressful.
Always anxiety if they like it or not as well.
For sure, there's a lot going on in the head. I think like most tattoo artists can definitely relate to it for sure.
So you've done your 5 years of tattooing. What made you sort of get back into your art then? Because you said you were burnt out from RMIT and you hadn't painted since then. So what made you sort of get back into it?
I think when I left Melbourne like a couple years ago to go do like 2 years in Mexico.
Yeah.
And at that point in time, I was like a little bit over tattooing. I needed like a little bit of a break. I needed to leave Melbourne. So I picked Mexico to go, and I got 3 weeks into 2 years and I had to come back because of COVID hit. So I ended up going back to New Zealand to be with my family. And I guess I didn't really want to start getting back into tattooing so soon because I wanted to take such a specific break from it. So I thought what I could do is like start painting on like clothing or jackets and things like that. And that was kind of like the in-between that I could choose.
Did you ever start doing that?
Yeah. So I actually got a couple, I might be able to show you later, I got a couple jackets here that I brought over that I painted. It's kind of got like an anime chick on the back. Yeah. But that kind of led me into wanting to like pick up a paintbrush again sort of thing.
So you've pretty much, you picked up a paintbrush, you started drawing on clothes, and then for people who don't know, you got a unique style of painting. How did that come?
How did it come about?
Yeah, how did it come about?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I've definitely got a couple like staple artists that I always go back to because I just love their aesthetic style.
Yeah.
And so they always have a massive influence over me. But I guess when I paint, I don't like to know how it's going to look when it's finished. So it's very much like I'm reacting to like a layer at a time. So it's like a layer on top of a layer, and then over time they'll kind of start to like interact with one another. Yeah. And I think the idea kind of formed when, I mean, that was the first painting there. Yeah. And I didn't like it to begin with. I didn't know what to do. And rather than throw it out, I thought I'd like chuck a big white paint stroke over it. Yeah. And I was going to throw it out the next day, but I thought I'd go inside and like leave it for a bit. Came back, started a couple other paintings over the last couple of weeks, and then kind of kept catching in the corner of my eye, and I was kind of starting to like it or see things in it that I didn't see before. Yeah. And then over like a period of like a month, I maybe like looked at it one day and was like, oh, I actually kind of find what's going on here like quite interesting. So from then on, it was trying to replicate that. Yeah. And because it was such a random process for me, trying to replicate it the first and second time was quite difficult.
Because throughout your collection, you've got a lot of like white marks through all your artwork.
Yeah, for sure.
What do they sort of represent?
So, I mean, they have two specific sort of meanings, and I didn't really, while I painted them, I wasn't too sure about what, it was just kind of more of an aesthetic look. Or a result of being like frustrated at the painting to begin with. But as time went on, I kind of started to realize that the layers are very much like thoughts in my head, and they're kind of like new ideas and old ideas kind of like clashing. And then the white is kind of like, it can represent a lot of things. It can be like an epiphany, or it can be like anxiety, amnesia, things like that I find like I've experienced here and there. I think that's like the only thing that I can kind of relate to. But it's interesting because on a visceral level, when you look at it, it's the only thing that calms the eye down. So it's like polar opposites. Like on the concept side, it's like quite hectic for me, but on like the visual side, it's the only thing that like lets the eye anchor into the painting. If it wasn't there, you'd your eyes are just going all over the show and it's not fun.
Yeah. What is the sort of like meaning behind like the craziness in your art?
For sure. Well, I mean,
because it's super unique. So you got the white sort of slash that represents a lot of your feelings.
Yeah.
And then what's sort of the stuff at the back? You're saying it's the sort of layers.
So the
layers of what?
The layers are like thoughts, or more specifically, like they would be like, how would I put it? It's kind of like old and new information. So it's during the last lockdown in was it spring last year that Melbourne went through, I had a bit of spare time. I wasn't tattooing or anything like that, so I got the opportunity to like do a little bit of kind of work on myself, and I got really interested with the idea of, you know, can you actually change as a person and things like that. So I started looking into, you know, how do you change? Well, you start looking at new information that can challenge your perspective.
Yeah.
And I find that moment really interesting, where whether it's talking with a mate or it's like watching a movie, reading a book, and there's a new bit of information that kind of challenges you, and you can like what kind of happens in your brain when you're receiving that information, I find really interesting. And I feel like my paintings are kind of like exploring that moment in time when new information comes into the head and meets or challenges with what you thought previously was, or your old boundaries or old morals.
Or old sort of like values and stuff like that.
Old values for sure. And like the interesting thing for me is like there's so many different ways to like that someone can respond to like new information. You can like completely reject it because you don't want, maybe you might not be in the mood to learn, or maybe you take in the information too much and you don't put it through your own personal filter, so it's like not your own idea.
Yeah.
So yeah, the paintings themselves, all the layers and everything are kind of like those new and old ideas kind of like moving around my head. And then like the big white stripes on the front are kind of like, they represent different, like each painting has like a more specific meaning to me. Some don't, but there's definitely a couple there that like, I've got one I don't. Oh, that one just right there, it's called Amnesia. And that's literally like when I'm in a social setting and stories are being shared, I kind of want to contribute, but when I try, my head will just like block it, won't let me. So it's like, it's not all my paintings are about that, but they tend to be like a little bit of insight into like my head personally, and what I think people can like relate to on some level. Like everyone kind of goes through that sort of shit.
Yeah, 100%. What is the sort of like purpose of your art?
The purpose of it?
Yeah.
Well, the intent to begin with was to just share it. Like I didn't want an idea or a concept to kind of
even to do this gallery, or
no, not to begin with. So that was the interesting thing, is like kind of going through uni and all that, the idea of having like a concept or a narrative for a show didn't make too much sense to me, especially because like when I paint, it's like random, or I'm reacting, I'm not planning much.
It's all off like feeling and meaning. So by the sounds of it, you know.
Yeah, well, definitely, but at the time it doesn't really feel like that. It just feels like a painting.
But it's actually like, do you reckon it's because like, say your art is a time in your life?
Yeah, 100%. So it's like
say you do one month and then another like 2 months later, and they're completely different.
I think so. Even if it's like specific to the content, like maybe a cartoon that I'm watching at the time, or maybe there might be like certain imagery that would suggest that that's where I was at that point in time, or what I was intaking. But the idea, I didn't really have an idea or want one until me and my flatmate Ringo kind of sat down one night, and I had maybe 5 or 6 of the pieces, and we kind of put
that
them
time
all.
I was going through that.
Yeah, and it kind of became super obvious. We were like, holy shit, like this is kind of what we've been talking about together for the past like couple months. And I'm like, the best way I know how to describe myself is visually. So it makes like heaps of sense for that to be carrying through at the time in my paintings. So although I was reluctant to put an idea to my art, this felt super authentic, and like it's something I'm quite passionate about. So I was like super comfortable to like talk about. And normally if I kind of, I'd get shy with talking about my art, but this is like, it feels genuine to me.
So it's good because it actually relates to people, and it's like authentic, you know, like, and it's unique.
Yeah, unique for sure. I mean, each to their own. Like I make art a lot of the time with the intent to not have a meaning, and I think it's whatever the vice is for the person. Like whether
it's like a getaway or something like that.
For sure, man. Like I like the idea that I wasn't meaning to have an idea behind it, and it just like organically kind of like evolved.
Yeah, because you weren't like, I'm going to put that Davy Duck there, or like put that person there, or
I mean, there's definitely a process now for how I get this aesthetic look.
Yeah,
but how the content changes over time is like, it's at the time when I'm painting, I can't put 2 and 2 together. But if I have reflection like a couple months later, I'm like, oh no shit. So it's kind of like a cool little, it's showing me where I was at some point. But I mean, my next show might have like
completely different.
No meaning. It might literally just be like to look at.
Yeah, might be like aesthetically pleasing.
But this one, it's like I'm kind of cool. Yeah,
putting your heart on your sleeve, mate, for this one. Eh?
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, it's good. No, it's good. That's what people want to see, I reckon.
I hope so. Yeah, I hope people connect with it for sure.
Because I might be like looking at one of those art and be like, I feel that, you know.
Yeah, and even if it's not kind of what I specifically kind of like, because the show itself, I'll kind of maybe say a little bit about what everything as a piece is as a whole and what it means, but each individual piece I kind of want everyone to have their own experience with it, so there won't be like any description of what it means to me.
I reckon that's perfect.
Yeah, leave it up to the viewer for sure. Then
I like going to like galleries and stuff and being like, oh, this is how this makes me feel, you know.
For sure, you can figure it out on your own, and there's like less opportunity for me to put my foot in my mouth. I'll take that for sure.
I see there's like a lot of naked men and women throughout your paintings.
For sure.
Well, why is this?
Well, I think it's such a natural thing to be like human and be interested in like the body and like the naked body, and it like to a point where it's almost like taboo. So it's like I've drawn so many of them that it's just like not a big deal for me anymore. But I do get reminded sometimes where people like look at it and they're like, holy shit. But yeah, it's something that's quite normal to me. It's also like, I don't know, I just always enjoyed drawing naked people. It's kind of like the easiest way to put it for sure.
Because of feeling and stuff like that.
Yeah, I guess so. I'm just like, I think it's like interesting to get like the proportions, the curvatures, all that thing. Like, it's just like, yeah.
What was the sort of the most difficult part of the show?
As I'm learning at the moment is the promotion for sure. Like,
so the art was easy?
The art was like, there's periods with my art where I'll kind of have a block for a bit, or I'm just like I don't think I'm producing anything good. And then there'll be a week where I crank out like 1 work or 2 works or something like that. But I'm kind of I'm used to that. But what I'm not used to is like having to like put out my story, my narrative, and like kind of share what I feel like is personal to the public. Vulnerable, yeah. And when you're putting it on social media, like it's not something I've had too much experience with. So that's something that like, as soon as I put it on social media, it kind of feels like the authenticity of it's being taken away. Yeah. So but that's not true. It's just I
don't agree with that. Like you sitting in this podcast right now, like saying how you feel about all these art, it makes me feel a lot better.
Yeah, for sure.
You know what I mean?
So that's kind of what I'm starting to learn, and hopefully by my next show I'll be a bit more clued on about it.
Yeah.
But definitely the most challenging things so
people
far.
would want to be taken through a journey, and
I think so.
I think most of your art, like pretty much all your art, goes through a journey.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, at the least, I want someone to like stop and look at it. Yeah. And if someone does that, then it's like mission complete for me.
Yeah, your galleries. Yeah. Happy days, eh?
Yeah, I hope so.
How many pieces are you going to be having at the Honey Bar?
So at Honey Bones, I'm going to have... you're all good. It will have drinks. So there'll be like...
Drinks on you?
Not on me. I'm sponsored for sure. Yeah. But no, we'll have a couple drinks there. But I should also mention I'm lucky enough to have my mate String... DJing. Cool. His Instagram is Primitive Needs. So yeah, great music. So they'll be playing. I'm super fortunate to have them kind of showing up and setting the vibe for me.
I think we'll be all there filming it as well, which will be pretty cool. Like show you a bit of behind the scenes and stuff. So you're gonna have about 30 pieces?
30 to like, I think by the time I finish this piece I'm working on at the moment, I should have 33. Most of them are paintings like this.
If you can see on YouTube.
Yeah. So most of them are roughly around about this size. There's one quite a bit bigger, and then they kind of range from like small, medium to large. And They're all paintings, and then I've actually got like a set of 8 digital prints that are kind of like a little bit different. This guy here, Bart, was actually like modeled after one of the digital prints. I'll be able to show you later, but there'll be like prints, like affordable prints and things like that for people to buy if they want to swing on through and have a look, for sure.
Yeah, it's a vibe. I'm just wanting to know, last sort of question.
Yeah.
What was your concept behind this whole show?
The concept. Well, I guess the concept is, well, the show's called Stimuli, so it's essentially like kind of stimulating the brain, and the reason that I kind of use the spelling of stimuli is kind of like it's got stim and then you and I.
Yeah,
so it's
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah, bro. So it's kind of like working together to grow.
Yeah,
and all the messy bits and the fun bits in between that is kind of what the show is about, and hopefully it brings together like some people, and it's a cool experience. It's kind of all I can ask for at the end of the day.
Fuck, I'm loving this conversation. Eh?
No, me too.
Like a lot of good feelings, a lot of meaning behind the name. Do you want to just wrap it up and tell us how, like, all the information?
Yeah,
what's going to happen on the day, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, so the show's going to be running for a week from the 26th at Honeybones in Brunswick. Yep. All the descriptions on my Instagram. So I've got 2. It's Daniel_Mcauley. Yep. And then my second Instagram, which is my tattooing one, but was also promoting some of the work on there, is Simpler Lines.
Yeah.
So it's just the word simple with an R on the end and then lines. All the details in the link there. But the opening nights be on the 26th. Everyone's more than welcome to come. There'll be drinks, really good music, good people, and it'll be there for 5 days after. So looking forward to it.
And the space is super cool as well. Big.
Yeah, it's new. So it's kind of like a converted warehouse. The 2 owners that run it, they used to be in Collingwood, and they've just recently moved to Brunswick for like a bigger spot. And they have like hired artist studios and things like that there also. So they've got like a bit of a community going on, and it's kind of like art for artists, and it's it's cool. I like it. I'm stoked I got with them for sure. Yeah.
Well, that was a very cool conversation. Very Legend, interesting.
Man. Thanks for having me on. For sure.
Thanks for coming on, mate, and telling your story.
Legend, man.